Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled podcast. Last week I forgot to say this, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. Steve, good evening, Steve. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, mate. How you going?
I'm okay, actually. I'm just going to turn my microphone up because for some reason it decided to turn itself down to a lower level. Is that better? That sounds better.
Oh, yeah, it is actually. It is better.
Yeah, that's better. I'm all right. I've just we'll just tell the listeners it's a Tuesday evening as usual. Wednesday morning in Sydney. Steve and I are on Zoom as we do every week. I have just been out. I have been out tonight. I went out last night as well. It's like I'm going out too much. I know you're in lockdown, Steve, so you can't really go anywhere, can you?
Yeah, and it just got announced overnight that our Premier Gladys, who I don't mind, I guess, but anyway, is likely to announce that she's extending it for another 4 weeks. And look, I know everybody around the world understands the whole kind of dramas that go with lockdown, but it's like, oh, really? Fuck.
But the thing is, though, Steve, 4 weeks. Yeah. 4 weeks means they must know it's getting pretty serious in Sydney. It's the listeners that don't know. Like, I think the numbers are they over 100? Yeah. Are they over 100 now?
Yeah. They're over 150.
150, which is a lot for Sydney. So it's
for Sydney. It is.
Yeah.
The scary thing is not so much. Well, like from my basic understanding of it, is not so much those physical kind of numbers, because a lot of them are people in households kind of passing on to each other. It's more that like the numbers of people that are out in the community that are infectious.
Yeah.
Which kind of means that people are still obviously wandering around and just going and doing stuff.
Yeah.
Which you're not supposed to be doing effectively. And those numbers are around 70.
People are still being irresponsible, aren't they?
Look, part of me, I'm a sort of pedant, so I kind of am relatively good at, sticking to the rules and stuff like that. But I do understand everybody's kind of thing where you just kind of go, oh, well, I'll just go and sneak out and go and do whatever. But the premise of that is that if everybody goes and does it and, like they obviously accidentally catch it and then they accidentally pass it on to everyone else, then that's where the problem lies. But,
yeah, true.
We're all human. Like, I get it. Like, it is getting a bit funny. As in cooped up funny.
I find it, and I know the listeners in the UK are probably saying, what are you talking about? But I find it a little bit weird. Like I've just been, and I just said to Steve before we started recording, I went out with Nick, who's in London for a couple of days. Nick, who's been on the very first owner stories. Nick was number one. Nick, who has the Carrera 4S 997, friend of ours. And I went out with Nick last night, and we went to... Hi, Nick. We went to Ivy in Canary Wharf. And Ivy, I love that restaurant, but, there's no masks. I still feel very weird. There's no check-in. There was no check-in. There's no more check-in app thing. The NHS used to do it here. There's no mask. I don't know. I still kind of, like in our building here, because it's a high-rise, I still wear a mask. When I go over to the new apartment, which is close by, I wear a mask. If I'm on the tube, I wear a mask. I still wear a mask in the supermarket today when I had to go to the supermarket. Oh, not today, the other day.
Are you in the majority? Is everyone else in London like that, or Freedom Day?
There's some people wearing it. Like tonight, I just went and had a quick drink with Nick before we recorded, Steve. I said to you, I just had met him at the hotel. He's just staying near me here. With views all over the city. It's a lovely view. But once again, it's like weird being in a bar where it's not super full, but no masks. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm still not. I don't think it's because it's been so long. I'm not completely comfortable with it, and the fact that I'm about to go back to Bahrain soon, like in the next week or so. I have to go back now, unfortunately. Like something's changed and we weren't going to, but now we have to go back sooner rather than later. So, and I know when you go back there, it's all masks again. So then I have to get back in the frame. You might as well just keep wearing a mask because there you have to wear a mask. You know what I mean? So I don't want to like fall out of the routine either because that's just what you have to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because we're obviously behind the rest of the world because our vaccination rate is so slow, blah, blah, blah. The bits that I have read about you guys doing Freedom Day in the UK, blah, blah, blah.
Freedom.
I don't know. It does sort of feel like a bit of a weird sort of experiment. Like clearly, cases are going to go up. People are going to pass, all of that sort of stuff. I know that the government's I guess behind closed doors, they kind of recognize it and they just kind of go, yeah, that's just how things kind of work from here on in.
Yeah. I wish I could remember exactly what Nick said to me last night. And I know Nick's listening, and I wish I could remember exactly what he said to me. But it's almost like going to war. You know what I mean? With the English, it's just like the English go to war, and you're going to know they're going to have casualties.
Yeah,
but you have to do it.
Damage.
Yeah, you have to do it, and you have to have collateral damage. And I can't remember the exact wording that Nick said. Sorry, Nick, but it's just like, and it's kind of like that. You know what I mean? It's like, well, let's go forward. We're going to lose some along the way, but we'll get through it, and we'll get through it together.
Yeah,
and it's that sort of attitude.
All of a sudden, it's not COVID; it's just like the flu. And like, I completely understand it. I know, like in government, they're not just weighing health stuff; they're kind of weighing up economic things. So then there is a point where you're sort of just trying to move forward, and it'll happen in Sydney sooner or later. It's going to be later, but it's just a weird kind of headspace that they're trying to shift you to. And I guess from a psychological point of view, I'm just kind of curious as to like what you just sort of said. I think because I'm a conservative person, I would continue to wear masks pretty much most time.
And I do.
But I wondered if like people just really buy that all of a sudden because it's Freedom Day that you can go and do the hell whatever you want. It's like, that's slightly illogical.
Wow, 18 months of it, I guess. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we all know you can still. I mean, this is not a COVID podcast, but it's something that's impacting all of us at the moment. We have listeners from everywhere in the world, and it's impacting all of us. And this Delta Plus and Delta Plus variant, is widespread. We working on there's a Delta Plus, which is the one that's going through UAE. And we're working on a project in Dubai. Which we have to go to Dubai shortly. We're going back to Bahrain, but then we'll eventually be going in and out of Dubai. And, it worries me a little bit because Dubai is still on the red list for the UK, which means if we're in Dubai, we have to sit ourselves in Bahrain for 10 days before we can come back to the UK.
Okay.
Because you can't come back into the UK at all. And Bahrain's still on the red list as well. They're not taken off yet. So it's kind of weird. Like, we need to come back here because we need to fly out of here to go back to Sydney. And it's like, I know it's not till October, but there's all this stuff. And then you just told me Sydney's in 4 more weeks of lockdown. And then 4 more weeks of lockdown means, 25 people per flight. We're going to get shafted off our flight. And all I want to do is get back to Sydney. And it's like, you can't plan anything. And this is the most annoying thing. You can't plan your life. And I think that's where it's impacting all of us, where we're all, and it impacts us all mentally. We're all impacted by it. We're all affected by it, aren't we, Steve?
Yeah, it's starting to fry my brain. Like I keep sort of saying it, I'm a massive introvert, so I'm very used to my own space, like, sort of being by myself and living in my own brain. But my own brain is kind of getting quite fried at the moment. So
yeah, no, because you're, I mean, look, we don't live in boxes. We live in, people in other parts of the world live in smaller places than us. We've got to be, but still, it's not easy when you can't go anywhere. Anyway, let's get on. I just want to start with the usual, Steve. I want to start with the usual. But I had a good chat with Nick. It was good to catch up. I was supposed to get not much. What
was the last thing you did? Fire extinguisher.
I don't remember. Nick, fire extinguisher. Nick, I think, fire extinguisher. Nick's bought a house. He's bought a house, so he's been concentrating on his new house that he purchased. Okay, so 2 new members of Patreon this week. It was really weird. Last week I announced 1 new member, and then straight after that we got 2 new members. And I'm wondering whether it's because I made that comment in a previous episode about the number of Patreon members compared to the number of downloads and how the math didn't add up for me, Steve. Remember I told you that?
I don't remember that. But
You don't remember that? Anyway.
Well, you're laying the guilt on.
Yeah, like 3 members in the 1 week. One person I announced last week. But 2 new members this week.
I've got another tactic. Another tactic. Try crying. Sob into the microphone and see what happens.
No. It's not that bad. Like I said, Steve and I did this out of the love, not for the money. Yeah. That's for sure. Okay, so 2 new members of PorscheCooled this week. Before I get into that, PorscheCooled is on Patreon. Patreon is where you can become a member of PorscheCooled. You can join PorscheCooled Exclusive, Exclusive Plus, or PorscheCooled Base. $2 to $10 a week US. I think it converts it into your currency. So it's patreon.com/PorscheCooled, or you just do a search when you go to Patreon. It'll come up straight away. So I've got 2 new members, Steve. First one is James. James, I don't think you've reached out to me.
Okay, James.
Go James. I did. I think I sent James a message today just to say thanks, but I'm not sure if you have a Porsche or what you drive. So let me know, and I'll mention it next week. And then Benjamin, who I have actually chatted to, I asked Benjamin to come on a owner story, so he's going to come on a future owner stories. And Benjamin owns a. He said he's a long-time car enthusiast, collector, and hack mechanic. His current garage is a 1995 911 C2 manual in Venturing with classic grey interior, your color.
Very cool.
And an 03 Boxster S manual. A Boxster S manual.
Nice.
I feel like Boxsters. You miss the. I feel like I missed the boat on Boxsters too. Have you seen the prices of Boxsters? They've jumped up a lot, Steve.
I don't follow it.
You should. And he owns one of your favorite cars that you've been talking about because you like how they sound in the previous podcast. But this is an old one. He's got a 97 Range Rover in Beluga black with light stone interior. But he's got a 97. 97's quite a nice shape.
I don't know him well enough, but yeah, cool.
Because I know you want one of those now, Range Rover, right? That's one of your cars in your list. Yeah, cheap one.
Negative.
10,000 Range Rover, 2004, 10,000 Australian dollars. Drive it for a week and then throw it away.
Watch it blow up.
But Chris, Benjamin, he's owned a bunch of different cars over the years. He told me, and then now he's into Porsches and he's into watches as well. So thank you, Benjamin, and thank you, James, for joining PorscheCooled. Much appreciated. Owner story, Steve. I did the same to you. I've been so busy. Sorry, mate. I didn't send it to you again. And I know you haven't had a chance to listen to it. It's a good one. Listen to it and tell me next week. I spoke to Pete only a week ago, actually. I haven't been doing them in advance, and so I only spoke to him a few days. I think it was last Friday I spoke to Pete. Pete is got a great story. He wasn't into sports cars. He's not into Porsches. He wasn't really into German cars from where he was where he grew up and whatever. There wasn't a lot of sort of, I don't know, people that had German cars, I think, or sports cars. I mean, basically because it's sort of, country towns like what I lived in, but in America. And also his lifestyle choices, he carried he's a cyclist and he snowboards and skis and stuff as well, I think. So it's basically lifestyle and he needed something more utilitarian to carry his things around. But his father, when he grew up, I'm giving away the whole story here. His father had lots of Corvettes and Cadillacs. His father was actually a plastics engineer and he worked for General Motors and he developed the airbag. He was working on the airbag development for General Motors in the US.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just think it's cool to be called plastics engineer. Just something about that just sounds really cool. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But anyway, Pete never thought a sports car was going to be good for him. Wasn't that he hated them, but an unexpected event, a sad event, an unexpected event happened. His best friend died, passed away. So he decided to, when he went to the funeral, he's at the memorial, he sees a car in the garage and egged on or urged on by his brother, who's also his friend, brother of his best friend, Steve and Mike. He decided to buy the Carrera, so he bought it. So he bought the 996.1 Carrera 2, Guards Red. Sad story, Steve, but a really nice story. And what's really good about it is he's now, enjoying that car with his friend's brother, who lives in the same area as him. His friend's got a Targa, I think it is, an 02 Targa. Yep. And it's just a really good story. So I think if you haven't listened to it... I saw
the photo.
Yeah. And that was his friend's car, and he's just, like I said, he didn't really want it, and then he bought it. It was like he just decided it was like a no-brainer, basically. He just had to have it, and he bought it, and it's good. And now he's doing this hobby with his, with his friend's brother, who's his friend, and, I don't know. It was just I really enjoyed chatting with Pete. It was a really cool story. He's a really nice guy. So make sure you check that out. That's Owner Stories number 44 with Pete from Minnesota. So make sure you listen to that if you haven't had a listen. If you don't know what Owner Stories is, it comes out every Tuesday on the PorscheCooled podcast. Steve, you got a recommendation? Yes. Let's do our new segment. This segment is called A Recommendation from Steve and Michael, or Michael and Steve, until we think of a better name.
Somebody could recommend that to us. My recommendation for this week is, because we have been in lockdown as previously discussed, I don't know why, I've just had too time on my hands, so I've been watching lots of YouTube clips on detailing. I know you watch Ammo, the Ammo guy as well, who's Matt Farah's old mate.
Yeah, I do. I quite like him.
He's,
I don't watch all of them.
Yeah.
I like the ones where they're really a mess.
Yeah, I don't really watch all of them either. But I am getting more and more keen on the notion of actually kind of having a go at doing a paint correction on my car. Sort of stripping it back, do a paint correction, buy the machines to kind of do it, and then probably do some sort of coating, do it all myself. Like, I know you can kind of pay, it's a bit of a risky one because I know you can kind of pay somebody to do it, because the reason why you would do that is machine polishing your car is obviously going to take some degree of clear coat off the top. And if you don't really know what you're doing, then do you want to sort of test it on your own car? I think I know enough to.
How do you, Steve? Sorry, how do you know what grade of buffer to use, though? That's what I never understand. Like, Larry goes through it, doesn't he? He gives a kind of vague.
There's different degrees of pads, like and polishes, compound polishes as well. And like, you know, clearly, like if you're a bit nervy about it, then you just start with the finer ones, and you're not really taking much off, and you'll just be able to kind of see. Look, all in all, I've got a white car. So it's not like this. I've scratched the absolute hell out of it by kind of going the old school waxing, you know, every couple of weeks way. And basically the premise of all of this is that the more that you contact your car, the more that you putting kind of really light surface kind of scratching into it.
What? You told me to wax every week. What are you saying? You're saying it's wrong now?
Yeah, it's
you
wrong.
Changed your mind?
It's way wrong.
What?
Yeah, I haven't changed my mind. Yeah. Anyway, so I've been just strangely watching all of this stuff. I'm not at the point where I'm going to go and do it because I can't afford all the equipment. Like, I reckon it's going to get up there. I reckon it's probably like
how much?
Maybe 1,500.
Whoa!
I reckon it's about 1,500 to two grand. To
why so much? Tell me why so much.
You need to buy the machine polisher. You potentially, like, if you're going to get really.
But isn't that just one from the hardware shop? It's just a normal, like, you know, tradesman's tool thing with the different.
Nah, if you look it up, there's a Rupes, which is Italian, or a Flex, which is German, and they're about $1,000.
Wow.
Then you've got to buy the pads that kind of go on it. Then you've got to buy the polish to kind of do it with, and all of that stuff's cool. But then also like the physical, the ceramic coating.
Right.
You've seen that, and you're familiar with that.
That's expensive, yeah.
That's a couple $100.
Yeah. The one for my wheels, I think I paid 80 for the bottle for my wheels. 70 or 80, I think, from memory. It was expensive.
Yeah. So look, it's all cool. Like this is more like hobby type stuff. So I reckon.
So what is so good about these buffers, though? Tell me why those buffers are so expensive. What is it? The speed, the variable speed of them? Is it the pressure? Why would you need the specialist one?
I can't talk about it confidently enough, but look, a lot of that stuff too is obviously geared towards like professional detailers. So like you buy a good machine because you're kind of using it every day. Like, you know, I'm going to use it, you know, about for 5 consecutive days or something like that. And then I'll probably pack it away and maybe bust it out every 6 months or 12 months.
But you have two cars. So when you divide it by 2 cars, it's not that expensive, you know?
Yeah. And then once you start horsing around and lending it to you and all of that type of thing, then it changes.
It costs me nothing. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, look, my long-winded rant was just because I'm in that mode of kind of getting quite keen on the idea of having a crack at all of this. And I was watching a Larry Casilla Ammo NYC video, and one thing I could do, because I don't have all the gear, was fill in all the stone chips on my car. So I got some touch-up paint, and his latest tip or trick to kind of do it is to buy these little kind of plastic syringes. They're like needles. They're not like medical ones. They're ones that I think they're designed to kind of apply glue and other little chemicals to. So same premise, like, you know, you suck up your sort of paint, and then you've got to push the thing to kind of release the paint, and it's got like a little metal needle on the end of it.
Yeah.
And you just got heaps more control to kind of go and fill in your stone chips. And look it up on eBay or Amazon or whatever. There's different sizes.
Yeah.
You get heaps more kind of control. It's much better than using a brush or like a toothpick. So I actually had to go at this a couple of weeks ago. At first, I thought I botched it and sort of overfilled everything, but then I realized that once the little blobs dry, it's actually kind of not bad. So,
Oh, really? It looks okay.
look, it's not perfect, and the next step will be once I kind of get some of this other stuff, then you'll have a go at polishing it all back and trying to reduce the kind of little blobs on your paint.
I think I've seen him do that. I saw him do it on I forget what car it was. I remember it might have been a Ferrari even. I can't remember. I saw him doing it with the syringes and he was quite good at doing it. Because what was that other kit that I was going to buy, the kit that everyone buys, the touch-up one, which is the...
Dr. Color Chip?
Dr. Color Chip, yeah. And some people say the results are really good and other people say the results are crap. But I'm still interested by that because I see some people have done it and I think, man, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I've done Dr. Color Chip a few times in the previous years on the 993 and this white car. It's good on like really, really small stone chips, like the really, really fine ones, but anything that's kind of big that you sort of feel compelled to use a brush or a toothpick, it's the same thing. Like there's no magic kind of magical sort of thing with that. So
it's weird, my father on our cheap cars, our Holdens, when I was a kid, I remember he used to buy touch-up paint and he used to use a toothpick, but it wasn't a toothpick. He used to get a matchstick and break it off and get the end because he didn't have toothpicks because he was a smoker at the time. Yeah, and I remember him doing the yellow, we had this yellow Gemini that he bought new. And I remember him like touching up the chips with the toothpick and the touch-up paint. I don't think the results from memory were great. I was very young, but I remember him doing that with the toothpick. It's weird how things don't really change. They're still the same sort of process, just refined a little bit.
I was just scratching around for stuff to do, and like even in terms of dreaming up something as a recommendation every week, it was like, oh yeah, that it only costs like $6.
Yeah,
it came from China or something, and
maybe I'll try that because I've got a couple of little ones.
Yeah, I can give you one. I got a packet full of them free.
But if I get my front bumper done, all those chips are gone. But there's no chips on there because it's got the PPF on it, so maybe that's okay. And there's a couple of chips on my bonnet, actually. My bonnet's got a couple.
You don't have PPF on the bonnet, do you?
No, it's just on the front bumper and rear bumper. Front bumper and rear bumper. But what about, you were saying about the detailing, though? So your white paint on your car, which is Carrara white, right? White. So it's quite, you can see the swirl lines, can you? It's quite strong in light.
On a white car, you have to. It's sort of more like fluorescent or LED lights, I guess these days, or really bright sunshine. So, like in the shade and everything, you can't really sort of see all the swirl marks and stuff like that. You really can kind of get away with it, and that's also part of the reason why I'm probably happy to kind of give paint correction a go myself rather than giving it to somebody, because even if I kind of did like a 50-60% kind of job, I reckon it would be good enough. Like you have to look really hard to kind of find the swirls.
Yeah, I mean, when I do my car in the garage, and you know where it is, and then I always park it underneath those fluorescent lights, so I have the strong lights on it. But then I also shine my phone on it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And my car's quite surprising. Like I can see some fine scratches in some parts, but in general, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's actually pretty good. I mean, of course, if you do paint correction, obviously it'd be a lot better, but it surprised me that it wasn't, obviously not as bad as my black Audi was, but, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Like, it's just part of, I don't know, something to do. I've been egged on because my uncle kind of got into it, as I've sort of said in the past, and it's something I kind of enjoyed sort of doing anyway, but I don't want to go too far. I don't want to get to the point where like you're sort of babying the car, and as I've said in the past, like if you get your car pristine, but then it sort of reduces your want to drive it, then I've gone too far. So don't let me get there.
I mean, it's a big investment, but I guess anything you do with your car is an investment. Once you've got the tools, and you've got the tools, right? You don't need to buy them again. You've got them. So it's like any type of tools you buy. You know what I mean? Isn't it? Yeah. Really? I mean, it's never cheap to start off with, but once you've got them, I guess it's worthwhile, even if you only use them every 3 months or whatever. I really want to get... Go ahead.
Sorry, if I had the tools right now, like given that we're week 5 or 6 or whatever in lockdown, I probably would have actually started. Well, I think the other kind of trap when, my uncle keeps sort of saying, why don't you just go and do it? And it's like, well, part of the reason why I can't go and do it is that if I disappeared on my wife for like a whole day, she'd divorce me.
That's what I'm saying. How are you going to, you'd have to do it in stages. You'd have to work out, I can do this bit for 2 hours and then come back up and then do this bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you go down there and when people are sleeping. That's what I was thinking. You go down there and instead of sleeping, you just go down and do it.
Yeah, could do. Plus, we don't have a garage. I live in an apartment block, so it is quite dusty down there. It'd be better to kind of do it in your own garage sort of thing. So anyway.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you're allowed to go to your garage, right? You're allowed to leave your flat, right?
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah, so you can go down. It makes sense. It makes sense to do it now when you've got these 4 weeks now, the extra 4 weeks. She's announced it already, right? There's another 4 weeks of lockdown, or she's about to announce it?
I think it was speculative. I don't think she officially announced it. They normally... it's 8:30 in the morning now, so it'll be 2.5 hours, and I'm sure she'll say, hey, everyone,
it's a good thing to do, though, Steve, don't you think? It's a good thing to do at this period. Keep yourself sane.
It's not going to happen for me because, like I said, I need to kind of buy some gear and all of that, and I can't disappear on my kids.
So to all the listeners, next week we'll be talking to Stephen and go, yeah, I bought all that stuff and I started doing it.
Yeah, probably.
I didn't really have anything because I've been rushing, but I had something, and I had something that I'd kind of forgotten about, and it's a shop. It's an online parts store. And we always talk about Suncoast, and we always talk about Design 911, and we always talk about these other stores. And when I was talking to, and I think he said it on the podcast, Daniel, I'm sure Daniel's listening. Hi, Daniel. Dan from Brisbane. 944. Sorry, I keep thinking of another owner story that I just recorded last week.
The dark
Garnet red. Garnet red.
Garnet, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, so when I was talking to Dan, he mentioned how he got some suspension and he got them from Rose Passion. And I forgot about Rose Passion. And I'm sure most of the listeners, I'm guessing most of the listeners have heard of it. Maybe people new to Porsche haven't heard of it because it doesn't always come up in search results. And I think that's because it's French. It's in France. It's been around for a long time, hasn't it, Steve? A long time. But
I think so.
It's one of those sites. Have you been to it recently? Rosepassion.com. It's rosepassion.com, and it has parts for every Porsche. And it starts at a 356, and it goes through everything. And they have lots of stuff. And Dan was telling me, from there? I almost bought something, and I can't remember what it was. I remember when I first got the 911, I was looking for something there, and I think I bought it from Suncoast instead. So I don't know what it was. Or I was looking for something, and I can't remember, and I didn't buy it. But I kind of forgot about it because every time you do a search for Porsche parts, it comes up with Suncoast, or it comes up with Design 911, or it comes up with the other one, Porsche Parts, or whatever it is. And Rose Passion, I think, is a good little find because they have lots of things. And Dan said he bought suspension from there, and it was still even a lot cheaper being shipped from France to Brisbane instead of buying it in Australia, even with getting, all the costs involved. So I think if you haven't been to it before, I think the listeners should go and check it out. Like I said, 356 all the way up. I mean, their first page, Steve, when you go on it, you see all the cars, and then they have, it goes from 356 to prototype. I don't know what prototype is. On the front page, it says 356 to prototype.
I'm just on there as you're talking.
Yeah, what is prototype? I didn't click on it. Well, you can buy, if you happen to own a prototype Porsche, you can buy parts for it. That's very crazy if that is. I don't know what that means. Did you forget about it, though? Did you forget about Rose Passion?
Yeah, you're right, because it never ever kind of comes up. I sort of have a couple of slightly different, slightly more obscure ones.
Do you remember the old site? They fixed it.
No,
It's much better now, the site. It wasn't like this years ago. Yeah,
right.
But it's I think it's a good resource, and I think if you need parts, and even though it is in France, apparently they ship all around the world, and their prices seem to be quite good, Steve. So I think I'm going to spend some more time on it actually because I didn't get a chance to look at it again today, but I just wanted to say it, and that's it's my recommendation for this week as an alternative place to look for parts. And like I said, Dan reminded me of it when he was chatting to me about his Porsche.
Yeah, cool.
Apple ratings and reviews. I just want to say a quick shout out about this, Steve. There's no no new reviews this week. If you guys haven't given us a review on Apple, please give us a star rating. If you've got a bit more time, please give us a review. When we get these ratings and reviews, it helps us to get closer to being the number one Porsche podcast. We want to get there and be close to Spike, because I think he's the number one. And it just basically makes us show up in the search results. Because of you guys leaving those reviews, I think I just looked before, and I think we're at 49 at the moment. We're still sitting about 49 in automotive podcasts in the USD, which is,
yeah, cool.
I think that's quite amazing. I don't know why. I think it's quite amazing that we're that high up. And nice. This changes all the time, and it's pretty consistent that we're around about 49 or 59. So I think that's pretty good. And that's just in the US. I didn't check the UK or Australia. I think Australia would be a little bit less. I'm not sure why. What else? Detailing. We've done detailing. I mean, only because you've got a Macan. And I've had a guy contact me. I can't remember your name. I know you're probably listening. Who's got a Macan who wants to come on Owner Stories. I haven't got him on yet, but I will, because Owner Stories about all Porsches. It's not just about 911s or Boxsters or Caymans or 944s or 924s. Ajmal won't enjoy it. No. And I know a lot of people get into Macan before they get into a 911 as well. Some people actually have a Macan first. You know what I mean? But what do you think about the updated Macan? I looked at the pictures online. They had the Cayenne and they had the Macan. I don't know what's going on with the grille. I don't know. There's something weird going on there. It doesn't look resolved to me. What do you think?
Way too fussy. I don't know. Like Porsche's most current designs across the board, they seem to be enjoying the use of a lot of black plastic. Their plastic engineers are taking over.
Why is that, you think? Are they cutting costs?
It's a look thing. No, I guess it's an aesthetic thing. I don't know. Like I sort of wondered what the hell was going on when they did it on the 991.2 GT3 RS. And then all of a sudden, like it's on everything, and it's not. Yeah, I don't know. Aesthetically, I don't really like it. I don't really like the kind of severe contrast between the black and any color, unless it's black or dark. But yeah, I'd agree. Like the front of the Macan doesn't look that great. The rear is the same. Like they introduced the light bar on the previous one. That's okay, but it's a very kind of very ho hum sort of very quietly released sort of thing. But I'm sure it'll sell in massive numbers.
I mean, this is the last of the internal combustion engine Macans, right? The next one's going to be fully electric. So this is it. This is the last hurrah. I think, I like your Macan, Cindy's Macan, because it's a turbo, and I like how it looks. I have to say, though, I did see, and as I said to you, I think before we started recording, I want, my wife Natasha doesn't drive. I wanted to do driving lessons when we go back to Australia. I'm not going to put her through it in Bahrain. I think it'd be hell. And I'm trying to work out what sort of car would be a good car. I suggested the M2. She doesn't like the M2. And that was probably a little bit selfish, because I don't mind it myself. But then we saw a Macan the other day, and I just showed it to her again because it was the updated one with the back, light bar at the back. And I like what they did to that model from your model. I mean, like I said, I think yours looks good because the turbo and the body's slightly different, right? Still got the same rear lights at the back as the other models, but
slightly,
But I do like the new Macan. I thought it looked, I see this one near Greenwich, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I made Tasha really look at it this time. And she said, yeah, I don't mind it. Because this one was really well spec'd, Steve. It was black, but it was actually very tastefully spec'd the way the person had done it. They just got the right options, silver brake calipers and silver seat belts. And you know what I mean? It just looked nice. But then I saw the pictures of this new one, and I thought, why did they even bother? Is it really going to make that much of a difference in sales? Because it looks like they've just, I don't know, it looks like they've just rushed it to me. It worries me with Porsche. Like, I understand the extra plastic on the new GT3, right? I do understand that plastic that people hate at the front, that some people hate, all that black plastic. But you think a GT3 is a track car. Obviously, they've made it plastic because that's where it's going to get chipped, right? That's where the stones, that's where it's going to get hit. That was that's what I thought it was. And then on the Touring, they haven't, because it's not going to be used as a track weapon. So they paint it on the Touring. But on the Macan, that detail, it's just, I don't know, it looks wrong.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a bit of non-news. I watched Nick Murray did a video on it. I don't know, he seems to do lots of Macan videos, because I know he's driving one as opposed to a 911.
Oh, right. I didn't see that.
Yeah. He sort of took the slightly cynical view of I think he was sort of saying that Porsche models generally kind of rotate every 7 years, and it is the 7th year, so technically the new Macan should be out. In his opinion, he was sort of saying that they're obviously late on the electric ones, so this is a bit of a stopgap or something like that.
They're waiting for some technology to get better or something, or they're just behind because of COVID.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like,
it's a popular model, though. You know, it's a very popular model. So I guess they researched this. You know, Porsche don't just do things lightly, do they?
Yeah.
So they must have researched it and think that this is going to keep selling because it's a big selling car for them. It makes, you know, it helps our 911 passion because it helps the development go into 911s, into that side of their product line.
Yeah, probably a bit, maybe even slightly more our style in terms of just talking would be the Cayenne Turbo GT.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
Released a couple of I just can't get into the whole SUV thing. I know I drive one a lot, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Well, because you realize when you have one, yes, the Macan is probably the best one to have. People say it's better than the Cayenne, right? The Macan is the one. It's still, you know, based on other SUVs, the Macan is very, very good, right? But, you know, obviously the Lamborghini Urus is very popular. Isn't the GT basically a Urus?
Urus in disguise, yeah. It's 10 horsepower less, but lighter. It's, I don't know, I think it was like 14, 15, 16 seconds around Nürburgring quicker than an Urus.
Right. You don't really want to go that fast.
I watched a Matt Farah kind of thing, and he and Zach kind of said that it is bloody amazing. Like, it corners flat and
oh, really?
These sorts. Yeah, so they were kind of raving about it. But again, just for me, I just can't get into SUVs. Like, I'm sure it's an amazing thing. But I still just can't kind of come to grips with the notion of, well, I know that they're popular. I know a lot of people like to sit up high. The space, I kind of think it's a bit of a myth that, you know, that it makes it kind of more practical in my world. And
I don't find them that big. You know what I mean? I don't even find the Merc that big. I mean, the Q7 that we had briefly, I found that big. Yep. That was long.
Right.
I thought that was very usable, the Q7. Like the Merc ML, the old MLs, they don't feel that big to me.
Yeah. I just kind of go, like, if you really want something that's kind of capable and like performance oriented, which I would lean to, you know, if I had my way with our family car, we would have gotten an old C63 wagon or something like that, as opposed to
I agree,
as opposed to the Macan Turbo. So
I agree. I would even buy an E63 wagon. Do you know what I mean? I prefer a wagon. I mean, you know, I had a wagon, which was, you know, you had this similar one at the time. You know, and I prefer the sports wagons, especially if you get the AMG one, like you said. I don't know if I go the C-Class one. I'd probably go E-Class. I actually quite like the E-Class, that really long, awkward shape. I think it's an awkward shape. But those E63 wagons that you can buy, they're E63? If it was one before, E55, E63, the prices have come down. They depreciate quite a lot. And I think that's much cooler. I don't know. I just think it's much cooler. I mean, nothing against people who own SUVs. I know there's a few people that listen to the podcast have them. They're
pretty much
for a purpose. But, you know, I'd rather have something like that. The Cayenne GT.
Or a Panamera. I'd rather have a Panamera over.
Yeah. I'd rather have the Panamera or the Taycan Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Is that what you call it? Turismo or Gran Turismo? I'd rather have one of those. I've seen a lot of Taycans in the last week. I don't know what it is. All of a sudden in Canary Wharf I keep seeing them, but I keep seeing them in white or black. It's like that I don't see any other color.
Interesting.
It's so weird. I saw a white one this afternoon when I was walking back from the tube. It's like, I don't know, they're always white and black. I want to see one in that blue color, that frozen blue that I like.
Frozen berry.
Yeah, and you like the frozen berry and the cappuccino, right?
Yeah, because I like my cars to look like my yogurt.
Yep. If you go to China, there'd be a lot in China in that color. You know that. It'd be a very popular color. It would. You know it would be. You know it would be. No offense to the Chinese listeners, but it'd be very, very popular, Steve.
I'm offended.
Are you Chinese?
I'm not much of a Chinese person, mate.
I don't know. What else do you want to talk about? I don't know. We saw that article. Steve and I I saw the article and I forwarded it to Steve. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth talking about. And it wasn't really an article. It was a top 7. It was called, I don't know. What did you think of that? The 7 Deadly Sins of Porsche Ownership. I mean, I think I found it it was a site that had 6 in the name. It might have been, it wasn't First Flat 6 because that's Greg. But it was something Flat Sixes. I think it was Flat Sixes actually. That's what it was, Steve. It was Flat Sixes.
Right.
And they had an article, I just tell the listeners, they called it this, well, it was an article, it was just 7 points. The 7 Deadly Sins of Porsche Ownership. I don't know, what do you think about this top 7? Is it worthwhile? I mean, I don't know, does it make
you
it sound
spent like 3 minutes. You just spent 3 minutes
but does it make
whether or not you're going to...
I don't know, does it make it sound like a whole bunch of wankers? I don't know. I mean, I know that's a Australian term, but, I mean... in a nice way.
You may as well just do it now that you've started.
What's number 1? So, 7 Deadly Sins of Porsche Ownership. I don't know if you guys who are listening think this is true. Slamming the front hood. Well, yeah. I kind of agree with that one.
Don't do it. Press the crest. Use 2 hands. You'll put a ding in your front lid if you try to throw the lid down.
Absolutely, especially if there's something sticking up. I always worry when I do the hood that I always am very conscious of where I push my hands to push it down, which you're supposed to do it on the emblem, right? You're supposed to, right?
Yes.
Some people don't. And if someone else closes your hood for you, because I know someone did it for me once and they didn't do that, and I'm just like, don't do that.
I suppose technically it's actually not the emblem. You're supposed to press where the latch is literally attached to the bonnet, which would just be in front of the emblem, wouldn't it?
Ah, right. Because if you push the emblem, you can actually indent your bonnet, right? You can dent it slightly.
No, I don't think so, but yeah.
No?
Anyway, moving along.
Don't you like this one?
What's that?
Don't you like the 7 Deadly Sins? Should we skip it? Using the wrong vocabulary, like saying Porsche... I don't know what that means, or V6. I don't know about that. That's a bit silly.
Saying Porsche pronouncing it Porsche instead of Porsche.
Instead of Porsche. Yeah, we know it's Porsche.
And saying that there's a V6 in there when it's a flat 6.
Flat 6, which is completely different.
Unless you drive a Macan.
Yeah, true. Wearing Porsche branded apparel in public when it's not appropriate. So it's not about wearing Porsche branded apparel, it's just when it's not appropriate, whenever that is. I don't know. I don't have any...
So when is it appropriate?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I don't have any Porsche branded apparel, do you?
I do.
What do you have, a hat?
Yeah, I've got a couple of baseball caps sort of things. No, apart from that, no, I don't. But
I've got a Luft tee that I bought. Well, I bought a couple of Luft tees. The first 2 I bought didn't fit me, so I gave them away. I bought another one, which I've washed and worn. Quite like it, the new one that I bought. I got some period correct tees, which aren't really Porsche apparel, but they're, like Porsche, with the one with Weissach. And then I've got the Mund hat, the Mund baseball cap, which I wear all the time, which I really like, which I don't even know where that is now. I haven't worn it for a while. It's somewhere around. But I haven't actually got any Porsche branded apparel. I have looked at it when I've been to Porsche Center City South there, and I looked at it, and it's like appealing, but I never really bite the bullet on it.
No, and look, you and I, when you kind of go to like an auto house, Cars and Coffee, or you go to the Concorde, the Porsche Club of New South Wales, like
they get you
every
in
man
there,
and his dog seems to be wearing merch, but it's not my kind of thing. It's funny because there was somebody on the Renlist 997 GT3 forum posted something similar to this, saying, what good Porsche baseball caps are out there, and he got absolutely slammed by everybody else. It's
really?
Like because I think it's sort of like the notion of somebody driving around in their Porsche wearing a Porsche cap, or is akin to like wearing Ferrari merch in your Ferrari and all that sort of stuff.
I know, but I think Porsche owners are a little bit more subtle. I mean, I know a lot of people, I know people who listen to the podcast have Porsche merchandise. I've seen it on their Instagram, and there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think when you first get into brand, I wanted to have it too, but I just never bought anything. I was going to buy a Porsche Club in New South Wales t-shirt and whatever.
Expensive.
But they're all expensive. I think that's what stopped me, I have to say. I like the merchandise that's a little bit more off-center. You know what I mean? Like I want to get those sort of t-shirts that are a bit different. I mean, like I said, Luft and other brands, Flat Six Jack
tell
in the
you
UK has really good T-shirts. You know, those sort of people that have T-shirts that are, you know, a little bit different, but still Porsche passion, Porsche, you know, centric.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you go to the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart, and obviously, like any other kind of museum, on the way out, you kind of duck into the shop and you spend, 45 minutes trawling everything on the shelves. You feel like, particularly in that, like I remember my wife and I felt very compelled to buy something because you were sort of commemorating your visit to the museum.
But you did, right?
We bought gifts. We bought stuff for like my wife's kind of family, like my father-in-law and brother-in-laws, my 3 brother-in-laws, and all of that sort of stuff. Just because it was sort of something. But did I get anything for us? I think I bought like a white keyring.
See, I would go a bit crazy in that shop because I really like the Porsche Museum books, and I think they're published by Burkhauser. I think it's Burkhauser or something. They use that really cool book publisher. You know, I got this thing for books, right? But
Yeah,
I bought the small little white one that I bought online from somewhere, and it cost me a fortune when I got it sent to Sydney. And then I got the green anniversary one, which is a Porsche Museum one. The actual Porsche Museum publication books, Steve, are really good. I think Alpha Spot has a lot of the ones from the Porsche Museum. I think if I went to Porsche Museum, I'd go a little bit insane. And I probably would buy a T-shirt if I found a good one there. But I going back to the clothing though, I have actually found good.
That stuff. It's super expensive though.
Yeah, but I have seen good T-shirts, and every time I see them, they always never have any size in Porsche Australia when I looked online. That's what I remember now. There was no sizes. And I did buy a Porsche T-shirt, actually. I forgot. And I haven't worn it. I got the 70th anniversary one, the limited edition 70th anniversary one. Mm-hmm. But I bought it like more to just keep. And I've never worn it, and I probably won't wear it. I just bought it to keep.
I don't know. But I'm kind of... if I had something like that, well, I reckon that if I was about to head out to a Cars and Coffee, or
so I've sinned.
Even if I was about to head out on a drive with you or Marco or whatever, I think the last thing that I would be doing is to reach for my Porsche branded T-shirt or whatever.
But would you wear a Luftkult T-shirt, or would you wear a Period Correct T-shirt?
Absolutely.
See, I would do that too. Yeah, that's what I think. But so,
that's
we're
different
not sinning.
from...
We're not sinning. What are these other ones? What are we up to? Number 4, spending too much money at the Porsche dealership. I don't know about that. Letting other people drive your Porsche unsupervised. Is that a deadly sin of Porsche ownership?
Depends who it is.
Depends who it is, I guess. I'm not sure about that. That's a bit silly. Yep. Leaving your Porsche out in the sun on a hot, humid day. Yep, that's definitely a sin. I agree with that one.
Really?
Huh?
I don't know. I don't go out much, so I wouldn't know. I don't park under trees.
Yeah, I don't park under trees. That's definitely a sin. That should be one of the ones. It should be leaving your Porsche out under a tree on a sunny day, because you don't want bird shit on your car. That's for sure. And the last one, which I think is one of the 7 deadly sins of Porsche ownership, Steve, using an automatic car wash.
I don't know anyone that uses a car wash.
I know one person. I think people use them. I think people use them a lot, and I don't know about the US listeners, but I think people use them a lot in US and Europe. I think people still use automatic car washes. I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do. I don't know. I don't know if that was worthwhile. I saw it and I thought, who knows?
You just spent 12 minutes talking about
12 minutes.
That,
you enjoyed that?
That was good.
Listeners are going, what are you talking about tonight? You know the thing you said about has Porsche become mainstream? I don't think we'll talk about the other thing today, but has Porsche become mainstream? You know what? And Steve put this on the notes, and we haven't had time to really think about it, and I just want to touch on it. And I want to go back to what we were talking about the GT, the Cayenne GT, and how it shares the same platform like a Urus, and how like the Panamera platform is a Bentley, and how, and I think that's what I don't really like as much anymore, how cars are all pretty much similar platforms. I don't know if this is what you were getting at with this. I know that's slightly different what you were moving towards, but
it's all right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. What do you think about all these generic platforms that everything is becoming the same? And I remember listening to something or watching a video and someone saying, can you really tell the difference when you're in a Bentley to when you're in a Audi to when you're in a, you know what I mean? Or a Lamborghini. I don't know.
Yeah, of course you can. Like, we're not engineers and sort of stuff like that. So like even just visually and like the way that they kind of deck out an
No, the
interior.
tactile things. It's everything you touch.
Yeah, but even then the suspension tuning and like the exhaust noise, like you know, the Macan and a Audi Q5 shares an engine, I believe. Stuff like that, but they're all kind of tuned differently. So I don't think, I don't know, maybe because I used to sort of say that like a Golf and a Audi A3 were, you know, why would you sort of buy
I used to hate that
an
though.
A3 kind of thing?
Didn't you? I used to hate that. Oh, you've got an Audi A3, it's just the same as a Golf. Why didn't you buy a Golf? People used to say that, you know. I remember people saying that to me. It's like, it's actually not. See, I'm saying now it's not, and I'm sort of saying, is it the same? And when I had the Audi, it was like, no, it's not. It's completely different.
Yeah, don't know. Anyway.
But I think cars are coming more and more similar, you know. But the thing about Porsche becoming mainstream, and this is the problem, isn't it? And you know, we want a Porsche to survive. We want a Porsche to get through their struggles that they had in the generations
90s.
before. In the 90s, yeah, when they were struggling. And we know the Boxster pulled them out of that. And then we know after the Boxster, it was the SUVs, the Cayenne, right? And that's what pulled them out. And then the Macan today. And this has allowed, you know, what you said, Steve, it's allowed more development, and it's allowed the 911 to grow into so many different variants because they have all the money to make them. Yep. But at the same time, like you said, is it becoming too mainstream? Well, is that the cost of surviving? You know what I mean? Is that what you have to do if you have to survive in the automotive industry today? That you actually have to become mainstream. And of course, Porsche has mainstream cars. I don't see the 911 as a mainstream model. I don't see it as mainstream. I think we get a little bit blurry-eyed because we own Porsches and we talk about them all the time, that we think it's just like a common thing. I don't think the 911 is mainstream. I think Porsche has, in my opinion, I think they make too many variants. I don't think they need as many variants as they have. I think it's a little bit crazy. And obviously, I think in the 992 generation, Steve, we know there's going to be other variants coming. No doubt there's going to be a Safari. No doubt there's going to be something else they'll throw in there. Is it another Sport Classic? Is it going to be a limited run Sport Classic? I think Sport Classic and Safari are definitely coming in the 911. I mean, I guess that's exciting because, you know, the money they have from selling Macans and Boxsters and mainly Macans and Cayennes, right? That money they can develop these cars, but what is the long-term cost? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I kind of put it in notes because I was just sort of pondering it. Like if you track like other brands that were equally sort of cool, not as sort of mainstream popular, like, you know, Apple and Rolex, even in kind of car terms, like right back in the day, like BMW and AMG, or maybe it's sort of more like the M division of BMW. All those sorts of things were, I'm sort of not meaning for it to kind of sound like exclusivity and sort of being elite, but there was a much narrower kind of audience for these types of brands. Yep. And then obviously as they kind of became more popular, like Apple is sort of like the classic kind of example of this. There's this horrible kind of marketing term called mastige, like mass prestige, where, you know, all of a sudden everybody kind of wanted it. It no longer kind of became this sort of mark of like if you had white earbuds hanging out your ears, like you used to kind of be super cool, and then all of a sudden it turns on its head and you're no longer super cool and you're, you know, like another one of the sheep in the herd. Will Porsche eventually kind of follow that route, and are we all going to go, oh fuck, like, you know, it's a brand that we once loved because it sort of had a particular kind of feel or meaning to us, but then like once you kind of see it, like too much of it on the streets, and like if everybody kind of owns it and it doesn't discern, does it change your kind of view of it?
Yeah, it's not as special. But this is why people are more drawn to GT cars now. Is that why? Because they are more special and they want that 911 that's the special one, where the basic Carrera now is not special enough. See, I'm wondering what impact the Taycan is going to have actually, and the variants of the electric car. And I know eventually this is going to be the main part of their range, but Sure, they got, Porsche got a lot of hype. Taycans were selling really well. The orders were crazy.
Yep.
The sales figures showed that, they made so much money, especially when it was first launched. I don't know how it's leveled out now. I'm sure it's leveled out.
Sure.
I still think Porsche is completely messed up. I still think they're messed up with the charging thing. I think they did it the wrong way around. That they don't have the infrastructure.
But they couldn't navigate it any other way because, like, everybody's benchmarking Tesla, but Tesla's been around for more than 10 years, sort of thing. Like,
I don't know.
You've got to establish your network at some point. But I know what you're saying.
I actually think, and I'm going to throw it out there, I think I would still be tempted more if I was going to buy an electric car, which I'm not at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, with the charging network, and I don't know what Australian charging network, I'm just talking about UK, based on the experience I've had when we rented that Tesla, I would still buy a Tesla over a Porsche Taycan, even though I think the Porsche Taycan is probably a much better car, a much more enjoyable car, and obviously better put together. Based on that hassle of it, I think you'd still have to get a Tesla at the moment. I really do. But that wasn't the point, Steve. The point was, is this going to impact the brand even more? How's the brand going to change now when you've got this electric car, this Taycan, which has got a lot of hype behind it, and people are interested in it, and the Cross Turismo, and all these variants? Is that going to make it even more mainstream?
Maybe not, unless they kind of bring out a cheap one, because they're still playing right at the top of the market. Like, it sounds to me, I don't know enough about Teslas, but from what I kind of understand of like car brands and model ranges and stuff like that, Teslas sound like they're hugely overpriced, but they could price their cars at that because they were the only player in the market. Now that, somebody like Porsche and Audi and Mercedes and everybody else is kind of coming in, they're all kind of coming in at the top because Tesla's sort of set the benchmark. They've set the price. So
first mover advantage, right? First mover advantage.
Yeah, but it then means that, like, Porsche can kind of come in and go, oh, okay, well, if you're happy to pay, $300,000 for a Tesla, then you'll be happy to pay 350 or 400 for a Porsche. So they're coming in from the top. It won't be until like things like the electric Macan and the cheaper ones kind of come in that sort of, from a marketing point of view, starts to dilute the brand. Like in a marketing boardroom somewhere, they talk about this stuff all the time because they're kind of going, well, if you bring in new markets like India and China, you bring in younger people, then they'll get into the brand, then they'll buy a Macan or whatever the EV is first. Yep. Then they'll kind of hanker for, like a 911. Then they'll hanker for a GT3. Yep. And that's the way you get them.
It's about keeping them in there for the life, isn't it? It's about getting them in and keeping them going up the chain, basically.
Yeah, and this is exactly the same with, like, use Mercedes as a kind of thing. Like, all of a sudden there's a A45 AMG. It's like AMG used to be exclusively V8s, and now all of a sudden you can buy a four pot, and it's crazy. Admittedly it's a hot hatch, but like, how much is it? It's like stupidly expensive for a little car.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, Porsche is not the only brand to kind of be sort of faced with this, but go back to AMG for a second. I think it's a little bit sad that, it was a very focused kind of brand, which was all about, like, basically it's a German muscle car. It had a big 8-cylinder engine. It was quick, not necessarily around the curves. It definitely in a straight line. If you want to go down an autobahn, it would be massively well built, and that was their thing. And now all of a sudden, like, they put AMG badges on pretty much anything that's not even really an AMG. So the worry for Porsche is that if it doesn't sort of play its cards right, will it go down the same route where all of a sudden you're going to see, like, Porsche badges on stuff that really, kind of shouldn't be on?
But at the moment, they're not really doing that, like you said, because the Taycan are priced high. I'm just wondering if, you say has Porsche become more mainstream, and the SUVs have kind of made them that way, right?
Yes.
SUVs have made them way. Is the electric variants, the Taycan, the Gran Turismo, whatever else is coming, is that actually making them a little bit more like they were before? Because not everyone is doing a car like the Taycan. The Taycan's
if they can innovate,
yeah, the Taycan's a great car, right? So, and they're doing this car, and no one else is really at that level. Like, I don't know about Mercedes-Benz. I don't know what Mercedes-Benz is doing in electric vehicles because they don't seem to be doing that much, or they're just a bit slow off the mark. I don't.
I
I know
think
there's
they
an
did.
EQ or something, some SUV,
Yeah,
but they don't seem to
yeah.
be as like Porsche seem to be pushing it forward more. So is this way of Porsche, the electric side of it, is this way of Porsche sort of regaining that thing where they are a little bit more special? You know what I mean? Like you said, the price point that they've marketed it at, is that their way of getting back what they once had before because they can see that they might be coming too mainstream?
Yeah, maybe. But I think like inherent in EVs, from my understanding of like anybody that sort of reports on it, is that EVs are going to be less differentiated than like a normal internal combustion engine car because
Yep.
it's effectively, motors on a skateboard platform with batteries in the middle as low as possible.
A very
And
fast skateboard.
yeah, but and there's no different in engine noise. There's likely to be kind of harder to differentiate in sort of suspension tuning and stuff like that. So like all EVs are going to be effectively feeling very homogeneous.
But the thing is, I don't know if you watch Hoovie's Garage. I watch Hoovie's Garage. I watch some of them. I find some of them interesting, some of them annoying, right? But he bought that Tesla Model S, and he bought a cheap Tesla Model S. I don't know if you've seen this episode. It's just recently. And he bought it, and then after he's bought it, it's actually got on the dial that the battery can't be charged to full capacity. You can only charge it to get 40 miles or something. The price of a replacement battery apparently from Tesla is something like $20,000.
Yeah.
So you buy these cars, and it's like, the service costs are good, but if the battery dies like we know our phones from phones, we know our batteries will eventually die, right? If you don't optimize how you charge it. This cost of electric cars in time to come. So what is the period where you can own a Tesla? Are these 3-year leases that people get them on and throw them away and trade them in and give them back? I mean, I guess that's the best way to own an electric car because you don't really want to own an electric car, do you? You can want to lease an electric car. You don't want to own an electric car.
Yep, absolutely.
So your whole ownership story changes. You know what I mean? Like even if there is electric 911s or whatever there is, it's like, do you really want to own an electric car? I don't know.
Probably not. But that sort of changes for everything. I don't know. Like the whole thing about Porsche becoming like, is it in danger of becoming too mainstream? Like, look, you can kind of understand it from a business point of view because they're there to make money. But you look at where they're at right now, like they're so successful. Like the 911 was always, Porsche as a brand per car, they made the most profit per car, like for many, many, many years. So they're obviously really smart in the way that they kind of engineer it and market it and all that sort of thing. But if they kind of get to the point where there's so many of them, just even from us as kind of normal people, we eventually kind of go the same way that we might, or we have done with things like Apple or Rolex or whatever, kind of go, everyone's got one, I don't really like it anymore. Like, will it turn on them?
Yeah, but is this why the classic market is so strong? You know what I mean? Is this why the classic market is so strong, not just in Porsche, but in other cars? Because this is what people are looking for. They're not looking for the newest and greatest. They're looking for the oldest and greatest. And that's why the classic market is going strong. But you can, you understand those, Steve, like with Porsche, it's like any company, like you said, you got to grow, you got to innovate. Otherwise you're left behind. Look at how many companies felt like they were stable and in a position where they could never be knocked off or never not exist anymore. Nokia, Kodak, And, I remember when I was studying business, like it was brought up all the time. These are the companies that were around 100 years ago. These are the companies that are not around now. You know what I mean? These were the leading companies 100 years ago. They're not around anymore. There's very few. And that's what's kind of scary when you see something like that. So it's not easy for these people making the decisions, that's for sure. But I think the classic market is just is part of it. It's not just because of COVID. I think this is what you said is, things become more mainstream. People look back in time. They look at the older models.
Well, here's a kind of question for you. Like, the more that you sort of see of Porsches, does it change the way that you view your own car necessarily? Does it make, like what I sort of said, like if you kind of see too many of them, does it make you kind of go, I wish people did, I wish, like in your heart of hearts, that not as many people had it? Because there's this classic thing of you want to feel more special by exclusivity kind of thing?
I had this conversation I think I was talking to Nick about this last night. You know, even, you know, where I live in Sydney, right?
Yep.
Even when I drive the car out of the garage and I go and park places and I drive places, I don't often see that many 911s.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you take your car out, like I go to Redfern or I go up to Surrey Hills or I go to the city or I go North Sydney, you know, I'll see Porsches. I don't necessarily see a lot of 911s. I know they're out there and people are driving them, but it's not often that you see it. Sure, you go to Cars and Coffee or you're out on a Sunday or a different day, but in a weekday, you don't see that many. Do you?
Yep.
It's weird.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
So I still feel like I'm driving something special. I mean, I feel like I'm driving something special because it's a feeling that gives me inside the cabin. You know what I mean?
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because the counterpoint to that, like from again, I'm sort of talking a lot of marketing type kind of crap, but when you think about it, it shouldn't really matter how popular or how many other people kind of drive the same car as you, because what makes it special should actually be the experience and the noise and the drive and all of that sort of stuff. And if you can't get that in a different car, that's kind of the thing that's supposed to make it good. And then you could kind of go, well, you're just being greedy and selfish because, like, wouldn't you want everybody else to kind of understand that feeling?
No, I don't know.
As well. So,
but we're buying it because we really we love the brand. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I buy a Rolex watch because it, you know, I like how it makes me feel on my wrist. And, you know, a lot of other people have that watch, even though it seems like it's impossible to buy. A lot of people have that watch.
Yep.
You know, you see it all over Instagram. People have the watch, but it doesn't make me feel like my watch is less special because it's my watch and it's how it makes me feel when I look at it. You know, the other day I was walking over to the shops here in Canary Wharf and I had my Explorer 2 on. And, you know, I looked down at it, you know, and it was like, wow, this is a great watch. And the sun was hitting it. I could see the orange hand. And it was like, it just gives you that feeling. And it's like the Porsche when I first get into it, when you've been away for a long time or when you haven't driven it for a long time, Steve. It's just that feeling you get, which is a feeling I know other people have that same feeling, but it's special when you feel it. And it's just like, okay, this is worth it. You know what I mean? Like you just look at it and go, no, this makes me feel better.
Yep.
And I know that sounds materialistic and people go, well, that's just, you know, luxury goods, but it's not. It's the appreciation of everything that's gone into it. It's the appreciation of the history of a Rolex watch, say, the appreciation of a 911. I mean, you get in your 911, you think about it. Every now and again, I think, wow, this car's been around for so long. Like, this car has been refined over the years, you know? Every now and again, I feel like that when I'm driving it. It's like you're driving something that's it's been around for so long and such a big part of automotive history. You know, it's an important car. You know what I mean? It will always be an important car.
It's funny, and I obviously agree with that because I kind of go, like, that's what's made it so special is the fact that, you know, the engine's technically in the kind of wrong spot from a physics point of view, but they've kind of managed to hone it and evolve it, blah, blah, blah. And it's got so much heritage. But then the counter to that is like the Jeremy kind of Clarkson sort of thing, or like you do actually read it in car journalism a bit, or you used to a lot, maybe less so now, which is like, what's with Porsche? Like, how is it that they can sucker punch so many people because they're making the same car, they incrementally change it, like they change it like a tiny little bit, but they charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars for this car that has barely sort of changed. Like you can see it from the other point of view. And it does, when somebody sort of expresses it like that, it's not valid kind of thing, because you kind of go, yeah, good point. Like, you know, they probably don't, if you're building a car and all they're doing is sort of, you know, shifting it here and there rather than reinventing it every single time. It doesn't cost them as much money to do that.
Like engine, right? Like the Speedster engine from the 991.2 is basically the same engine in the GT3, isn't it?
Which, and I don't know this as a fact, but I'm assuming this is why per car they're so profitable, because they don't reinvent the car every generation. They just sort of tweak it and hone it.
They're not paying huge amounts of money in development because they're just like, it's just little increments that they're just doing, and that's why their profit margin. Yeah, but when you think about that, it's like, it's clever. You know what I mean? It really is quite clever.
It's very clever. Yeah. Super clever.
Yeah. And it's taken all these years to do it, and they keep doing it, and you know, it makes sense.
But it's good. It's just really good, and that's why we kind of like it. But it's a funny way to look at it. So,
yeah, it is. Anyway. It is. All right, mate. Let's call it. We're over an hour. We're at the hour 9. How about that?
Yep.
All right, mate. Thanks. I hope it's all good. I hope it's not an actual 4-week lockdown. I hope they say it's only less for you and you're not stuck in the house for that long without going for a drive.
Look, the lockdown bit it is what it is kind of thing. It's probably just more that eventually, like I'm due to get my first vaccine in a week and a bit. So hopefully
Steve's not an anti-vaxxer.
Hopefully even mentally that kind of makes you feel like you're just sort of moving forward. I know it doesn't make you invincible kind of thing, but
people still get it.
It just needs the whole country to kind of get to a better spot so then we can all try to live a little bit more normally.
Yep, that's what we need. That's for sure. All right, mate. Let's call it.
Cool.
Thanks, mate. All right.
Cheers, mate.
All right, everyone. Thanks, mate. All right, everyone. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. My name is Michael Barth. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.